Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Commander Clash podcast, where we talk all things Commander. And this week, we are going to talk about the length of Commander games. Are Commander games getting too long? And what's the optimal length for a game of Commander? Joined with me today is Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive. How are you doing?
I'm doing super well. Good to see you.
Tomer, Budget Commander, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Excited to talk about Commander.
Krim, the Asian Avenger, what's up?
Good morning. I'm good.
And I am your host, Richard, and I will guide you through today's discussion of Commander game lengths. But before we get to that, today's show is brought to you by Card Conduit, the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. Card Conduit lets you skip all the typing, time, and work associated with buy listing. Their curated service lets you send in as many cards as you want with buy list value of $1 or more, and you pay just a 5% service fee. You can use their sorted service where you list and sort your cards and pay only 2%. You get a detailed report and fast payment once your order is processed, and you can get 10% off by heading over to cardconduit.com/mtggoldfish. So thank you, Card Conduit, for sponsoring today's show. And let's get into it. So what has spurred today's conversation? Maybe just through casual talk, maybe games at MagicCon. We've been noticing our games have been taking quite a bit longer. Even Commander Clash itself this season has started to take longer. Part of it is Magic Online issues, but part of it may be because of playstyle or cards that are being printed. So to frame today's discussion, we asked on Twitter and on YouTube what people thought the optimal game length is for Commander. And the overwhelming majority said an hour. That'd be like 55%. And then the rest of the people were at 1.5 hours, basically. So an hour to 1.5 hours. And then if not that, 2 hours is no-go. Two hours people think are too long. 45 minutes is too short, but still preferable to 2 hours. And then 2.5 hours, these people are very bored. There's very few of them. No one wants to go there. 1 to 1.5 hours. Do you think Commander in 2023 is hitting this mark? What are your guys' experiences outside of Commander Clash?
I think yes. I think like maybe I'm going to be the odd one out here, but I think games are getting faster overall over the years, and it does go around to an hour, so an hour and a half, and yeah, sounds about right. I like that.
I think my experience at Vegas was, yes, that hour and a half is pretty realistic. There was a couple of like super long games, and I think those are like unavoidable. Like you have a weird matchup, you have a weird draw. But I think in general, if I averaged out 20 games I played over the weekend, it'd probably be somewhere in that range. I don't think it was longer than an hour and a half. Commander Clash, that's a whole nother story. But in the wild, hour and a half seems pretty realistic to me.
In the wild, having gone to every MagicCon this past year, numerous other events, like all the games that I've played, they haven't been longer than an hour and a half, with some of them ending well under an hour. Mm-hmm. And that's me playing my dirtily decks, right? So I don't know if have games gotten longer? They feel like they're the same length that they've always been. If anything, actually, it feels like I used to be coming from 2 hours and higher, like back in the original, like the super OG Commander days. And yes, I think that's, I don't know, is that just my experience? Because it feels like it's gotten faster.
I've been playing since 2011, and definitely I was used to games being very long because it was less optimized and everything was less efficient. I think that was a 1-2 punch because our finishers were less efficient, our ramp was less efficient, our card draw was less. Look at white. If you're a Boros deck, imagine your card draw in 2011 versus 2023. Everything, it was less efficient. The card draw is so much better, so you find your finishers, and the finishers cost less mana and less setup to do, and everything was slower back then. And then we also didn't have EDH Rec. We didn't have all these online sources to tell us how to build the decks. We didn't have years of experience building and copying everybody's lists and stuff. There was just less information. We were using Tapped Out, and it was awful. The games are very long, and it was like that was expected. You get like 2 games in on your Friday night Magic. You'd play like a 3-hour game, and then people would be like, "All right, let's try to go for a fast game this time." It would be play a 2-hour game, and that was it. Like now games are like fast. It feels like very like
y'all need to join RichardCon. So the average, I think so. The average game does sit somewhere between an hour and an hour and a half, especially at MagicCons and stuff like that. But the variance, I think, is actually very high. So I think in past years, I never had a game go 2 or 3 hours at MagicCon. I had 3 games go super long. People were just not willing to die, right? You're like, huzzah, I do the thing, attack you, Teferi's Pro. Okay, untap, farewell, done, right? Let's go for another hour, right? Oh, Psych Rift here, redeploy all your stuff, redo the last 2 turns. Attack you again, Teferi's Pro, the other guy, Teferi's Pros, right? So there were these weird oddball games where we just went very long. And it wasn't the long of like 2011 or whatever, right? Like in the early days, you went long because you ran out of gas. You're like, draw a land, play a land, play my no value commander, attack for 4 anemic damage, pass, right? Like the long games I was playing was like, everyone has 8 cards in hand. It's like 2 hours in, right? Like the boards are wiped multiple times. All the engines are still going. And if you win, it's not because people run out of gas. It's because you managed to sneak in through under all the protection and get there. I should
also say that my previous events before Vegas had very, very, very long games. Almost every game was like 3 hours. And I intentionally changed my deck selection to try to keep that from happening. So I actually have sort of like rule zeroed out some of my favorite commanders. Like I don't play Yarok anymore because it's so triggery. It's going to take so long. I got a mono white Preston deck, which is really cool, but it's super blinky and loopy and Teferi's protection-y. So I just like stop bringing those decks intentionally to try to keep the game length shorter. So while I think I hit the hour and a half mark, there is kind of a cost to it where I'm like not playing some of my favorite decks just because I am trying to hit that mark.
I did this exact same thing actually. So the first, like I even did a tweet about it when I figured out what I was doing. The first game I played at MagicCon Vegas was my Calamax Arcane deck, which is a very fun deck. Very unique, but it's a little bit dirty and it's very slow to win the game because it requires so much setup. And I played one game of it and it was like a 2 hour and a half game. And I was like, wow, this is way too long. And I switched almost exclusively to aggro decks for the rest of the convention. I played Calamax one more time. It was still a 2 hour game. I did not touch my Zedru control deck. I did not touch my Tashiro control deck a single time. Myra, I didn't pull out a single time too because it's just too slow. And I played aggro for the rest of the convention. But I think that's like, I think that
aren't you guys saying games are too long and you're actively making choices to reduce game length?
Yes.
No, well, the games were short. They were
but because you actively chose to play aggro decks to keep the game short. Because if you played the deck you wanted, like Myra, please don't. It goes forever, right? Like
people love Myra, though. Yeah. Actually, that's the one they ask the most to play against.
So we had the privilege of playing Myra in the hotel room, and I was about to quit Magic. Like
that was because of me.
The amount of triggers. Like the amount of triggers and stuff happening. That game went so long, we stopped doing like any math. We're like, look, this champion of the parish, like if you get hit by it, you're dead. Okay, and I have like an arbitrary number of humans here.
Why are you blaming Myra?
Tomer's like rolling dice like crazy. We're like, I don't know what's going on. You tell me if the game has ended or not.
Okay. This is okay for the viewers
your
at home.
turn took a long time.
Me and Phil got knocked out.
Tomer.
Me and Phil got knocked out like 20 minutes into the game or whatever, and then Richard and Seth literally went for over an hour just playing a 1v1 game, and now I'm being gaslit to believe that I was taking so much time.
Before Tomer and Phil died, they took like 20-minute turns.
I had like one turn to pop off, and then I immediately died. I took maybe like if my M2GO clock was like maybe like 20 minutes. It was a 40-minute mark of the hour, and then I was dead. And then you all took a long time.
But did that game not inform you to not play Myra ever again at MagicCon? Like, it just takes too long to execute all the thingies, right?
I think people had dirtier decks, and I definitely leaned towards aggro more often, but that was a special situation where I had a lot of people coming up to me at my table and being like, hey, can we get in a game? And I didn't want to have 2-hour games, you know? I want to have shortest games possible so I can play with the most people, because there were people literally waiting to play, and they were like hanging around the table waiting to see if the game would finish up. So it was my incentive to speed up the game as much as play. So that's why I didn't play Control. But like, I don't think 2 hours is even bad. But I do think on
Speaking
average,
of Control, Krim, you said your
yeah.
games are getting shorter, but I always see you playing aggro at the table. Did you bust out your Control decks?
Yeah, I bust out my so I do. So my aggro games go well under an hour.
Wow.
I have a question, because I play Control, and let's say my Super Friends deck, right? You played against it. I mean, like, that game I didn't get to pop off pretty much, but like, I would say that my Super Friends deck, even that, like, is the dirtiest, like one of my dirtier decks, right? And that's like an hour and a half, right? But let me ask you a question. Are y'all just not killing people? Like, are you too afraid to kill people? Does this tie back to like a topic that we talked about in a prior podcast? Are the games going long because y'all are just not letting people go? You know, there's just not enough room on the boat, Leo. I'm sorry. There's just not enough room on the boat.
So Tomer and Seth actively shortened their game length, and I actively increased my game length, because
I've done nothing.
prior MagicCons, my favorite deck, it still is my favorite deck, is Rograk and Arden. It's a Voltron deck, and I refuse to play Voltron anymore because I don't want to be that guy. Like, literally 3 turns into the game, like, hello, buddy, you came to play. Here's a Colossus Hammer double strike. See ya, right? And then Rogak gets removed, and we play another hour game, and the third, the fourth person is sitting out. So I actively don't play Voltron, which is probably increasing the game length, because I don't want to remove someone from the game like so early. So yeah, deck choice does kind of matter in that, right? And but I don't know, like, I don't feel any better if I'm like, yes, let's make it an hour game, but 3-person hour game. This one person died 5 minutes in. Sorry.
I mean, it's not like like, you could also. I'm talking like, I wonder if the reason why that is like, let's just say on a turn you could. Seth's done it, like on Commander Clash, like, oh, he hasn't done this, he hasn't done anything for the whole game, or it's time for someone to go, and Seth will shift gears and let that person live, right? I'm like, oh, okay, right? Like, I know you said you feel bad about killing people,
aren't there,
like, early.
I kind of feel like there's social conventions to this. Like, you don't play Mass Land Destruction. You don't, whatever, play Winter Orb. Like, there's certain things you don't play.
Sure.
I kind of feel like, isn't one of the unwritten rules of Commander, you don't just, like, turn 3 someone randomly? Like, is that, like, bad form? I kind of, like, think that most people would consider it bad form to just, like, do the Arden Colossus Hammer, oops, sorry, you're dead, on
your
turn
man
3
is screwed, get him.
Yeah,
like
that would be the right way to play from a winning perspective, but I don't know if that's the right way to play in Commander.
I don't even mean like turn 3. I'm not talking like, because I mean, like, it's like turn 9 and people are still like, no, wait, don't kill me. It's like, no,
that's true.
It's turn 9. Let me. It's okay if you chose me. It's my time to go. Also, like, on top of that, like, there's. I find it nuts. Y'all are not playing some of your favorite commanders to help with the time issues. That is not the case. I haven't had to, like, nerf my commanders in any way in the where, like, oh, well, it draws the game out. I'm amazed that your games are the same length, apparently. I wonder how good we are at rating the length of our own games.
False. I can say that the Super Friends deck is not a 1.5 hour game length.
What are you talking about?
Remember, Krim's having so much fun, he doesn't realize that
we played in Barcelona one time, late night in the hotel, like LobbyCon.
Yeah,
it was in Barcelona.
Yeah,
And
but
I remember it was like a 3+ hour game.
it was
there
not
were
a
so many
3+
board
hour
wipes.
game. It
I was
not.
so tired. I
think-
remember I even won that game, but I did not feel happy. I felt no joy winning that game.
I think
it felt like a
Tomer-
relief.
It felt like it was a 3+ hour game because of how many sweepers did happen. But the game
I was
ended.
like,
The
there was
game
no
ended.
creature allowed on the board. I just sat there hoping
Yeah.
for death, begging for death, and it never came. And then eventually I just like dropped I have like 12+ mana. I'm like, Dragon. And then you're like, response. No? Okay, next turn. Attack.
Well,
Okay,
I think
it's finally
it's
over.
also because the people we played with, and maybe that's what it was. The people we played with that night, we played pretty fast, right? It wasn't like our turns took super long, right? Like it
I
was
played
pretty
fast because I had nothing on the board.
Okay, I guess that's fair. But that game ended, right? So
It did end, but it felt
And
it
it-
felt
and it-
very long. Maybe it wasn't 3 hours. It felt like 3 hours.
it might have felt like 3 hours because we kept getting swept. Yes, but
It's definitely not 1.5 though. It felt like a longer one.
it was not that long because we were just barely in that lobby, right? Like
So
Do
To
you
go-
guys feel skill matters in game length? Like, I feel the better you are, the longer the game goes, because it's like everyone has enough interaction to prevent someone from actively winning. And everyone has constructed their deck correctly to assemble their engine to not run out of gas to keep fighting the battle. So what do you guys think? Do you think it matters at all? Like whether, if the decks are constructed optimally or more poorly or power level or anything, do you think it affects game length at all, or it's just whatever?
I think it does. I think it must. Do you remember? So speaking of Vegas, one of the things in Vegas, Crim Trot Richard and I, the One Piece TCG, and I think you called it the sweatiest intro game of all time or something, because we each spent we don't know the game, which is kind of like Magic because you don't know any of the cards and there's so much text now, there's so many new things, so you're trying to figure everything out. But if you're really trying to min max and do that, it takes a long time, right? And now we're in a world of Commander where you never run out of cards, so you always have 8 cards in hand, 10 cards in hand, at least 7 cards in hand if you have a Reliquary Tower or whatever, but you always have a handful of cards. You got so many new cards that you haven't played with before, or your opponent's playing that you haven't seen before. All the new cards have a ton of text on them, so you have this huge wall of paragraphs in your hand, so many different options every single turn. So I think if you're actually trying to actively be the sweaty player who's making every right play, of course it's going to take longer, right? My favorite people are the people who just don't care. They're just super casual and I like Muldrifter and just slam it down and pass the turn and don't read anything. Those are my favorite opponents. I'm yes, I can get behind this.
I had a 30-minute One Piece game with Crim, and I felt bad that I was taking too long. And then you guys, I went to sleep and you were still at it.
It was
I
an
agree with
intense
that.
intro game. Okay.
and by the way, the cards are like vanilla bears.
Yeah, it's not. But
Okay,
I agree
so
with-
a factor is people are tanking too much now. There's just too many options happening, and people are tanking too much. It's not actually board actions, but people just in the tank.
So I can see a worry about card draw is way better than it used to be. So everybody I remember distinctly in 2011, people did go empty-handed and was drawing cards very inefficiently. If they did draw cards, they can refill, but then they won't be able to cast on the same turn. Now everything is mana advantage, card advantage rules everything. And I could see that being an issue also with the number of new cards coming out all the time that you have to reassess the board by reading everything. I can see how that could slow down the game in terms of you have too many options and too many new things that you're not used to. But at the same time, I still think for personally, my games are still the same. I don't think games are slowing down. But I can see how that could impact and slow down.
I
games,
think
in the
we've
vacuum.
adjusted for that as well. So there was a time where I actually tried to read and understand every card. Now I'm I don't even know what the 4 commanders are. I'm I don't know what that is. You tell me if the combo happened or not, right? How much damage am I taking this combat? I don't know. So, and I feel most people do that. Most people don't really understand what the card is. I don't think anyone knows what Baragon does to this day, right? They're just
No.
I don't know what happened. How much damage am I taking, right? And we kind of just do that because it's too much to read the card, take it out of the sleeve, read the backside, read the saga, figure out what chapter 3 does. But I think we've adjusted by just being I don't know, you tell me.
Not caring.
And
Yeah.
then that doesn't actually affect the game length because we just kind of play super casually and just be I don't know, you tell me.
Yeah.
I think
I
that's
also read
that's
your
how
stuff
people play.
after I pass my turn, right? I do my
Oh, so
actions.
sweaty, Krim. Reading the
I
cards.
know, but like,
Reading the
well,
cards.
after I pass the turn, like that's actually worse because then you find out, oh, did I just cast into a? Uh-oh.
I mean, I know.
Yeah, I don't think.
Oh, go ahead, Tomer.
I don't think it's like how skilled you are. It's more how sweaty you are. Like there can be a lot of skilled people who just take the game a little bit less seriously because it's Commander, and then they're more okay playing fast and loose. Like you don't have to try to optimize every single play for every single game.
I would very much agree. That's kind of where I'm at too. I don't think it's a skill level thing, but like an attitude thing more than anything. Like how seriously do you take a game of Commander? I was going to ask you. You guys have mentioned a few times that games you think maybe have sped up because we're getting more powerful cards that can actually like close out the game faster. But isn't that like counteracted by the fact we're getting so many much more powerful answers that keep the game dragging on? Like, yes, your commander is going to be able to kill quicker now. Yes, you probably have better threats now, but you're also playing against Farewell and you're playing against Teferi's Protect. Like, you're playing against all these cards that didn't exist before that are designed to like drag out the game and keep you alive. So doesn't it at least even itself out?
I don't know. You all keep saying Farewell and Teferi's Protection a lot of times, but like, how many more other cards is that? Like, okay, so yeah, Farewell and Teferi's Protection are very good, but I think there's more threats and efficient draw and efficient engine than there are efficient removal that's coming up. Like,
They all get
what are the
swept up.
best? What are the best interactions? It's still Fierce. It's still Mana Drain. It's still like your Swords of Plowshares. You know, like okay, yeah, Farewell shows up and Teferi's Pro shows up, but like all the other best interaction are the same stuff that we've been having for years now. So I
Okay,
don't know.
here's the question. Teferi's Protection. We need more Teferi's Protections or less Teferi's Protections?
Plus.
We're getting Everybody Lives, which is like kind of
Quite
Teferi's
sweet.
Protection, but not really. It prevents creatures from being removed. It gives you hexproof. It prevents someone from winning or losing the game. Do we want more of these? As if we're saying games are too fast and uninteractive, do we want this interaction? Or are we saying games are getting kind of stuffed by Teferi's Pro and we don't need even more Teferi's Pro looking cards?
I have
I
lots
think
of
the Fairies Pro is an
opinions.
anomaly.
What
I think the Fairies Pro and One Ring are the two main issues.
But they just printed Everybody Lives too. Like they're printing these cards every
yeah,
few
but that
months
one's so much
now.
worse.
Is it?
Yeah, I think that one's pretty. I don't think people will actually be playing it that much.
Really?
like,
I could be wrong.
The thing here is, so if you, it's still good, but it like you got to remember, you can't your life total, right? It's
Mhm.
they can't lose the game, and players, like other players, can't win the game, right?
Yeah.
Or lose the game. But it doesn't mean that your life total can't change. So there's
That
still
does.
lots of
You have
things.
protection from
Everybody
everything.
Lives says your life total can't change.
Your life total
No,
can't
no, no.
change.
Does it say that?
Wait.
It's a fog.
Hexproof and indestructible.
No?
Players get hexproof.
Players can't.
Can't lose life. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
okay,
you can still
okay.
kill them with like commander damage. You can still poison them.
Oh
Yeah,
yes, we always
okay,
say this
okay.
about Teferi's Protection. It has literally never happened.
no,
but
Teferi's
that's
Protection
No, no,
doesn't
no,
allow you to
you're not
poison them
there.
or commander damage them.
Yeah, you're not there, right? Like, I think that's the huge thing about it. So, like,
Yeah.
I'm like, because I'm making sure to read this. Yeah, like, it isn't that you have protection from everything.
I
No.
mean, you stuff it with your counter spell like that. That just like that kills
Sure, but
Teferi's
you-
Pro
you-
too, right? But it's
Yeah,
just
right.
another interaction that like takes place that stops you from winning the game, right? Like, because what happens
Okay.
is like you attack for lethal, someone Teferi's Pro's out of there, they untap and then they wrath, and then you're like, okay, cool, here's another hour to this game, right? Like that's kind of the problem. And I like I've seen so many Teferi's Pro. One Ring wasn't as
Oh, I've
common, but
seen-
Teferi's Pro, it's just like
Teferi's Pro
they
is
have
everywhere.
3 mana up. Like you just don't even bother attacking. Like someone will have Teferi's
But no, you have
Pro.
to bring it out. You have to take
You
it out.
have to, you have to force it out of there.
Yeah,
Maybe
but
that's
it's-
why you're having 3-hour games.
Well, no, because you attack and then they Teferi's Pro, and then they're
Sure.
like, okay, wipe the board, and then you do it again. But it just drags it on, right?
But you got to get it out of their hand eventually. Also, on
do.
top,
But there's a
on
cost
top-
to that, which is the game goes longer, right? What if they didn't have Teferi's Pro? What if they just like had, I don't know, creatures or something, right?
why would they do that? Also, like the other thing is, I don't mind if they even made more, because sure, let's say they made more. I don't think it like hurts. It's a non-factor to me, because if they make more, then your deck is just loaded with a bunch of Teferi's Pros. Then what are you winning with?
No,
I
I mean,
like-
you're playing Blink and you're dragging out the game.
Well, you have to, yeah, you'd only
It
run
matters.
the best ones. I agree. Like if you have a,
No, like if let's say they made 40 more of these,
oh,
right?
well, sure, yes. There's diminishing returns. If you made 40 more Teferi's Pros, the 39th one wouldn't matter much. But I would argue the second Teferi's Pro and the third one that actually are going to show up in every single deck, those matter a ton. Now you got to deal with Teferi's Pro from 3 players, 4 players, several times each game. Like, don't those ones matter a lot?
Dude, I mean, like for me, that's no different than just like a fancy, like in this case, like it's like you play a bunch of board wipes, right? There's a bunch of board wipes between 4 players.
Hmm.
It's no different to me there than that.
No, but I don't even
think the
think
fact
most
that
people do that. I think
it's
that's
also until
us
your
thing.
next turn. That's the problem with Everybody Lives. Is like somebody can Teferi's Pro, and then for the entire turn cycle, nobody else can even kill them too.
Yeah.
That's what I really don't like about Teferi's Pro, and it shuts down basically every single option. You can't commander kill them. You can't lower their life total. You can't do anything. You can't affect their board, and it's not even until end of turn. It's until their next upkeep. You know, that's which is wild. I really don't like Teferi's Pro. I don't want to see more of that showing up. But I feel like there's so many cards that are like a lower tier that I think are absolutely fine. Like Clever Concealment, Flawless Maneuver. I think these cards are actually fine.
That's
because
not.
Those aren't
Dude,
Teferi's
that's
Pros.
if anything, that's
I know.
helping you close out the game, right? Because you still get to keep your
Yeah.
creatures. Like, are they even in the same family of cards?
Well, Clever Concealment, it phases out you could phase out all your non-land permanents. So you can save yourself from a big board wipe. But the problem with Teferi's Pro is it saves you from a big board wipe, but then it also is an Omega Fog. The fact that it has an Omega Fog plus the board wipe protection is what makes it kind of like too good. And same thing with the One Ring. It's not that the One Ring, oh, you have protection from everything for a turn cycle, like big whoop. It's the fact that it's attached to such a good card draw engine, and it's on a permanent, so you can like bounce it and repeat doing it. Those are the 2 cards that I think are too much, but I can't think of any other card that really is as annoying in terms of dragging out the game.
I like that Wizards is trying to give non-blue decks ways to interact with combo kills. Like, I think that that's a positive. I think blue having a monopoly on being able to stop Thoracle or whatever, like, you know, whatever these like win the game combos are, various combos, I think that's a bad thing. But I feel like they like skipped over, if you compare it to counter spells, they skipped over all the like cancels and all the bad ones and just went straight to like Mana Drain with their first printing and printed Teferi Pro, which is just like so over the top, most ridiculous. So I really wish they had started like with the Angel's Grace level, something more like try more things like that rather than just going with Teferi's Pro, which is like just so S tier that it's too good. I found I don't even feel good when I Teferi's Pro and live. Do you guys feel good when like your opponent, when your opponent like they do all this cool commandery stuff, they like do their big thing and you're just like, oh, 3 mana phase out, haha, like joke's on you who did all this cool stuff. Like I played this 1 3 mana card that should have never been printed. Gotcha. Like, is that even satisfying?
I love it when
me,
they
that is not
Elevation of
satisfying.
Commander.
I love it when they think that the Teferi's Pro will save them and then it gets countered. That felt real good.
It's the same
Chris.
as either that or a simple just, you know, like it's pretty funny if they think they've got you in the bag and then you just peace out. Peace.
I think it was. I remember I personally thought the card was super cool at the beginning, but then it's just that you see it so many times that I think if you see any powerful card every single game, then it's inherently going to be boring, even if it's like super sweet or whatever. And I thought Teferi's Protection was really sweet at the beginning, but then now that I've seen it, basically any person who's in white, I'm expecting them to cast it at some point.
Yeah.
Then it loses its charm, but I think that's just like because of its popularity.
The problem with Teferi's Pro is it dismantles the win, right? You're like, it's just a free turn. And even if you don't sweep on that turn, when it comes back to your turn, you probably don't have the pieces to win again. Like you Crater Hoofed, you did the big attack at Teferi's Pro, now you untap and you have like a 5/5 or whatever, Crater Hoof now, right? Like you kind of like wasted your trump card. So you can't reload after Teferi's Pro, even if your board remains intact. So it kind of drags on the game in that manner. It's not like you just repeat. The other thing we mentioned a lot was board wipes. Is Farewell too strong? They printed a new Everything
this.
Exiles in Doctor Who for 7 mana. And I would say my biggest gripe about Farewell is there's no counterplay outside of Planeswalkers. Right? Like the way you're supposed to play Commander, which most people do not play, by
Well, it's
the
a
way.
Fairies Pro. It beats it.
Well, yeah, okay. You have to have the Fairies Pro or the counterspell, right? But if you have a big board, right, you're like, I'm not going to commit anymore because I don't want to get swept up, right?
Okay.
But if they just had a Wrath of God, you could play more Mana Rocks. You could play some artifact draw engine. You can keep progressing your game plan without overcommitting to the board. Farewell sweeps everything up. Like your counterplay is to ramp, draw cards, or play a Planeswalker. Like anything you commit to the board will get swept up. So when the board starts getting clogged, like people just stop playing spells because the Farewell is coming and they don't want to get like, got and get like 8 for 1 or whatever from the Farewell. And it just like slows the game down. And if you somehow manage to assemble a board, you get swept up. You just lost like 10 cards or whatever in that sweep. And now you don't have the gas and power to finish out the game. So what do you think about these like catch-all sweepers of like sweep everything and sweep them good? Exile them.
Okay, so I think the one thing here is we're talking like, every Farewell is like for sure, right? And so even with that, I do deck build and like plan as if it were, right? And I think there's a lot of ways to protect your stuff nowadays. But also I think Farewell is like needed because you played against my humans deck, right? You saw the board states where like just a Wrath of God does nothing. It does nothing. Too many cards are so efficient at keeping my board around. I had Jurina, I had all these things. I had like layers of protections from destroy effects. On top of that, I had random ward effects, right? So Farewell was needed just because of how efficient the threats are today. And now, is it too powerful? Not at all. Can you play around it? Definitely. I play Glorious Protector in full expectation, like in any deck. Like I am not afraid to overcommit into a board wipe because also, into Farewell, because if I did, well, I did my thing. That's fine. I don't mind. But yeah, there's tons of ways to get around it too, because Glorious Protector, you have Teferi's Pro, you have Clever Concealment now, you have lots of things like this.
These are all white cards,
yeah,
by the way.
but then it's being white or blue. If you're in black or green or red, you have no answer to it.
Well, really. Green is already the number one color anyways and can rebuild. It actually can. Like, let's be real here. Green can just rebuild. Like, it actually can just rebuild.
Fair. So, no, go ahead, Grim.
I don't know. I just don't see the problem with. I don't even think Farewell is like busted. I constantly see this thing like this discourse just resurface every year. It's the same as Droneth Magistrate, right? It comes back every year.
Is this the Black Reanimate players? That's the people.
Yeah,
who
like
it's
they're
like signed Black Reanimate.
I remember when I also said, I forgot what it was. We had one podcast where I said one of the best cards in like all of Commander in like it was Farewell, and the comment section laughed at me for hours, and that was an early Farewell and all that. And then now everybody's like, "Oh, Farewell!" Oh! But you see, it's not funny anymore, is it?
I think Farewell is like a symptom of a recent problem in Magic design. Like if you look at the first 20 years of Magic before Wizards went all in on Commander, Wraths that just hard wrath everything were pretty rare. You have like Nev's Disc, a Chroma's Vengeance, a Steward Command came out in lore when I guess Oblivion Stone is 1,000,000 mana. I really think catch-all Wraths that just blow up everything are way less interesting. Like, I think Commander is way more interesting when, if you're worried about artifacts, you play a Vandal Blast. If you're worried about enchantments, you play a Tranquility. Having these one card do everything Wraths, especially ones at Exile, I think are actually way less fun as a play pattern in the format. And Wizards, like, even dropping Farewell, like, in just the last few years, you have, like, Hour of Revelation, you have Ondu Inversion, you have Devastating Mastery, you got Boom Pile, you got Ruinous Ultimatum, you got Karn's Tide. Like, they're putting these on a very regular basis. So it's pretty realistic that your deck could play 5 of these, 10 of these if you wanted to. Just these hard resets, the whole board's gone. And they do add a lot of time to the game, right? Like, whether Farewell is overpowered or not, like, a hard reset, everyone's things are gone, let's start over on turn 6, is like, that is going to add a lot of time to the game compared to not having that.
I have a big disagree there. I think that it's called symmetrical board wipe, where board wipes everything, including your own stuff. is like more of an old school mentality, or the Wrath of God, the Damnations, even Toxic Deluge is pretty old at this point. These are all the old ways of doing it. And I think the modern way of doing it, which I much prefer, is primarily asymmetrical board wipes. They usually wipe the board, but they don't wipe your board. So Vandablast blows up artifacts, but I'm thinking more of stuff like they recently printed Ruinous Ultimatum, yeah, which Seth actually mentioned. It actually just blows up your opponent's stuff. Psychrit is one of the most popular ones because it also doesn't bounce your own thing. There's one that's, if you have vampires, there's a vampire board wipe that gives all things negative X and negative X. There's multiple giant ones where it deals damage to non-giant creatures. There's Crux of Fate, non-dragon creatures. There's one, they printed one recently for if you have counters on creatures. If you have counters on creatures, then they don't die, but stuff without counters on them. That just came out with New Capenna. So basically every single archetype is getting a board wipe that doesn't affect their own side of the board. And I think that's super healthy because it allows you to run board wipes, but it doesn't slow down your board progress, so the game can actually end quicker. And I don't like Farewell, not because it's too strong. I think it's actually fine power level wise. I don't like that it actually affects your own board because it does slow down the game a little bit. I actually prefer I would prefer a Farewell if it costed like 2 more mana, that it just affected your opponents. 8 mana Farewell, only your opponent's controls.
That would be
ridiculous.
Say. I mean, I agree with you. The one-sided board wipes are not board wipes. They're win cons. Like you, it's like playing an overrun or something, right? Like you play this with the expectation of winning, whereas a real board wipe hard resets the board, right? And Seth says you go back to turn 6. But that's not even true. So most people, which is like actually most people, Mana Rock believers, Mana Dork believers, are not only getting their board wiped, they're getting like quadruple stone rained in the process. So they are really, really going nowhere, right? Like they're going backwards to like turn 3, while other people, the green player, is still on turn 8 after the board wipe. And that slows down the game dramatically, right? So getting stone rained on your way down with the Farewell. And then it also hurts people's draw engines and stuff. Like it creates a game where it's hard to win because it's so clean of an answer. And if they ever printed like 8 mana Farewell, like that's one-sided, like that would be the most ridiculous card I've ever seen.
Cool.
Do it.
Like imagine if Psychrift was permanent. Just like
Psychrift is 7.
Discard them and exile them. You're like, what? Right?
What would you need to pay to get a one-sided Farewell? If Psychrift is 7, it's instant speed, mass balance, one-sided. What does Farewell have to be
10?
To be one-sided?
Yeah, I would say 10 at a minimum.
8, I would
at sorcery speed.
The other thing I would say about this whole thing is like, yes, I like that they're printing Wrath for specific archetypes, so you can kind of like make them one-sided. But if you've got EDH Rec, the things people are playing are Austere Command and Farewell and Wrath of God. Like, those are the top cards that everyone's playing in all their decks. So, yes, it's cute that, like, the 0.001% of people who are playing Giants can, like, keep their board in Wrath. But, like, how much does this actually impact game length in the wider Commander meta? Because it seems like if you just look at the percentages on EDH Rec, it's the Farewells and the Austere Commands. Those are the cards that most people are putting in all of their decks.
Well, obviously, because you can only put the Giant Wrath in the Giant deck, right? Otherwise, it doesn't make sense to run it.
Yeah.
So they're going to show up a lot less. But what I'm saying is that I think this is the way forward for board wipes. You need to print more of these, so every single archetype will have their own one-sided board wipes, and hopefully more than one, maybe 2 even. And then you can supplement that with like a generic board wipe as well, too. And move away from these Wrath of Gods.
So all of these rats are creatures only? Do you think we should make one-sided Farewell?
Artifacts, yeah. Yes.
Like a catch-all. I don't know how that would be templated to not affect your stuff, but because all of like the giant rats and stuff you're talking about is like creatures, right? It's like a Wrath of God. But if we move on, you can literally
make it right down Cyclonic Growth, but then change it to Farewell, and then change the overload cost to whatever 9 mana, whatever though. Like exile target. Choose one, exile target, blah, blah, blah. Or choose one or more, exile target, blah, 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 and then give it overload cost.
Yeah. I don't know. Done. I don't know if this solves the problem, though, because even if you look at, like, giant decks on EDH, right, go to, like, a specific giant commander, they're still playing Farewell, they're still playing Austere Command, they're adding in Realmcloak Giant on top of that, but even if they printed a bunch of these specific ones, aren't the Farewells of the world just so strong that everyone's going to play them anyway? Like on
Well, they
top
have
of
to.
now you get 3 or
I don't
4
think
of
so.
your like whatever giant specific wraths eventually, but then you also play 3 or 4 of just the really busted good wraths, and then everyone's
But you
playing
guys
a
don't
Crim
even
deck
run
and games never
Farewell.
end.
How many decks do you actually run Farewell in? Because I think for every single deck you can have an
All of
excuse
them.
on. Well, I know Crim does, but I think for Richard and Seth in particular who are complaining about it, I don't think you actually run Farewell that often, do you? You always be like, well, I'm a graveyard deck. I have a Sun Titan in this deck, therefore I can't run Farewell. Or like, I'm a creature deck. I don't want to exile my own creatures, blah, blah, blah. You do that for every single white deck that you own, and you end up not running Farewell in anything.
I will
So,
say
like,
that.
I don't think
That's
there's-
Richard. That's
Richard's
Richard's
logic.
logic. That's
and
not
the
my
same thing
logic.
happens, right?
Yeah.
I straight up have Farewell in my humans deck, so,
Well, so-
like I don't even understand why you don't.
I don't run Farewell in most of my decks because I use that exact same argument. Like, I have an Akiri Cauldron deck. I'm not going to run Farewell in that. I don't want to hit artifacts nor creatures. You know, I can give myself indestructible. That kind of
So
gets
you
around
best
that.
believe if I could one-side Farewell, I will do it.
I
right? Because I don't want
That's
to
what we
wipe my own
need.
graveyard. I don't run
need it
Farewell in
with
my
us.
white-based decks. But you better believe I will pay happily 4 more mana on my Farewell to just
Yeah.
one-sided wipe.
But
Even
even
memes
okay.
aside, maybe that's probably bad. Maybe it's too good to have a one-sided Farewell
Well, it's
because
a
it
win
just
con.
slows
Like I
down
can
people too
excuse
much.
one-sided board wipes because you just think of it as like an overrun or something, right? It's not the same as like a hard reset
Yeah,
the game.
on yourself. 'Cause
I
you can still
actually
progress.
think the power crept Farewell will reset harder. It will phase everything back in, right?
Mm.
Like the original chicken and
Sure.
egg is we play like a board wipe. It's too powerful. Let's make regenerate so you can regenerate through the board wipe. Oh, regenerate's too powerful. We can't kill anything. Let's make Wrath of God where creatures can't regenerate. Okay, now we can't regenerate. We're gonna play indestructible creatures. I'm like, oh, we can't get rid of them. We gotta exile them. Okay, now we exile all of them. What do? We phase out. That is 2023 production. We're currently at the phase out stage. There will definitely be a card that farewells and phases everything in before the farewell resolves. And then
know
what
what?
will Wizards do? What will
Good,
Wizards
though.
do then?
I feel like just green, black, and red are just like left out of this whole arms race because it's really just white. White
Yeah.
gets to phase everything out. White has the best answers to protection now, which is, I mean, great for them and everything. And blue obviously could just counter anything that is bothersome. But then, like, I can understand as if I was a Jund player, I'd be royally upset with Farewell because I don't have many options to answer it, and I think that's where it's a problematic card. But like, I don't know, man. I just don't see that being an issue right now.
I will.
I mean,
will-
like,
oh, go ahead, Grim.
I don't. I think that like regardless of like Farewell and all these things, like that's not why games are getting like longer to me. I still think a lot of it is just people are afraid to like turn 10, turn 11. They just won't kill people.
Okay, let's talk about this rule 0. So part of that is that combo players are demonized, right? Like if you run an
Or
efficient
dead in
2-card
like turn
combo,
5.
that's considered uncool, right? The stronger your combo, which means the easier it is to pull off, like the more
Mhm.
uncool it is, and like, bro, you're supposed to win with combat damage or something, right? Is that part of the problem? We all just untapped on turn 6 and like 2-card comboed each other, like the game would end, right? Like someone, maybe the first one hits the counter spell, but then the second person does it and the game ends, right? I mean, is that a problem? We've become like too casual. We've rule 0'd out quick kills and we gotta just hit people with mana dorks or something.
It's not. I mean, I think it's fair. Like, if you don't want to like have, I guess like I don't know, a 1-card combo, sure. But like, I will say that I don't think that's not even what I'm talking about. I think we just aren't down to like end the game. Like, as in, we do not end the game. We do not remove players. And it's like you should remove a player.
I don't know if I agree with
I don't
that.
even know what to respond to.
Yeah, I don't know exactly.
There's two different things going.
Yeah, I mean, so okay. Yeah, so as far as like not being down to remove players, I don't know if I agree with that. I think yes, on like turn 3, 4, 5 when people are getting set up, I do think it's like considered bad form to take someone out. But I don't know if I've experienced turn 11, an hour and a half into the game, like there being an issue with taking someone out. I don't know if that's been my experience playing Commander at that point in the game. So I guess maybe we need to be more on top of killing people super early and just not feeling bad if they sit there for an hour. But as far as the combo thing, I think it has the same Jund problem, right? Like, I think that's kind of the overarching issue. The same Jund problem as Farewell. Yeah, like combos are great unless you're playing green or red or black or one of the colors that can't Teferi's protection or play a counter spell. And then you just like feel pretty hopeless and helpless. So I think that's a big part. Like if every color had counter spells and could deal with combos, I think that the community would be much more accepting of them. But I think it's one of those things where it just like really skews heavily in favor of certain colors that can interact on the stack. And that's 3 of the 5 colors. So I think that's a big reason why people don't like playing against counters is you just, oops, I picked a commander I like, but it doesn't happen to be in blue or white. So I just kind of like am drawing dead to someone comboing.
I feel like saying we should play more combos is like saying we should do more combat damage. Like there's such a large spectrum on that. Like the difference between a Thassa's Oracle plus Demonic Consultation versus like, which is like 3 mana and 2 cards. And is almost impossible to interact with other than like a stifle effect versus like a 6-card combo that costs 15 mana and requires your opponents to not touch any of the permanents while you're setting up. Like obviously they're both combos, but we can't just like umbrella term both of them. I think
what about the
like,
casual combo? Like a 3-card combo costing 8 mana. It's still demonized, no?
Absolutely, it is. I mean, it's definitely demonized in the comment section in Commander Clash. That's why we generally avoid it. But I feel like
the thing.
I think at regular LGSs, I've never seen anybody have an issue of like, ooh, I've only pulled this off once in my entire life, but I did the 9 lives combo, which is 9 lives, Fractured Identity, Zedri to donate, or 9 lives, Fractured Identity, and then like Patricia's Scorn, a 3-card combo for a lot of mana and very, very sussy to pull off. I've done it a single time out of like maybe 50 Zedri games. Nobody complained. You know, everybody was like, oh, that was a cool combo. You know, I think that's more just like our audience kind of doesn't like combos.
I don't know. I think if you did that combo on Commander Clash, people would like it. Like I think if you did, if it was that
you
combo,
also Phage. You fractured Phage.
Yeah, fractured Phage. People are cool with that. So I think
there's
it depends.
Certain combos that people don't like.
Yeah, infinite turns you are always going to get the salt for, but I think that's more about the turns than the combo aspect.
Yeah, even if it was like as hard to pull off as a fractured Phage, it was still. Also, I still get people commenting about Kiki combo because I did that like once on a Commander Clash like 4 years ago.
10 years ago, you'll never live it down.
Yeah.
Also, Richard submitted more Kiki combo deck lists than I ever did. I did it like I had like 2 Kiki combo decks, and it was like 4 years. No, 3 years. It was like 3 years ago. And people are still like, oh, Tomer is the combo player of the group. Kiki combos all day long. I'm like, dude, come on. So, like, yes, I think there is a bias against combos, and I think that also makes, like, these, the fog meta that we keep talking about
Y'all
more
just
prolific.
Lie to yourselves there.
Yeah, I don't know. We're trying to manifest the fog meta.
I think Seth's thing is correct, right? If you are Jund and someone combos you, and it's not a creature-based combo, you're out of luck. You have, like, very little recourse against it. You're not like at this point, it's just like 2 people playing solitaire against each other, right? Like you can't interact with them in a meaningful manner. So is that the problem? If everyone had stack interaction, people would care less about combo. If everyone had Everybody Lives as a white card. But imagine if it was the One Ring and it was colorless, and every deck could run it. Would people be less salty about combos because they can actually do something about it rather than just like throw their hands in the air and cry imbalanced?
But almost all combos that I can think of revolve around having a permanent being on the battlefield that you can respond to. Like Thassa's Oracle is the unique case where like once Thassa's Oracle is on the battlefield, it's too late. You can't interact with it. But like if somebody just has a random combo, like even Kiki Jiki combo, you can respond to the Kiki combo. You could just kill one of the things when they activate it. So I don't think that's actually even an issue. There's like I can't think of like any other combos that are just like on the stack and GG. There has to be some, but like maybe like a dual caster mage. No, not.
I mean,
the only one is Thoracle combo, and no one plays that in casual.
Well, there's also a lot.
Every color should be able to stop whatever, right?
There's also plenty that don't involve creatures. Like yes, most colors can deal with creatures, but like Isochron, Scepter, Dramatic, Reversal, you need to specifically have artifact hate essentially to stop that. Or there's enchantment combos, Exquisite Blood, Sanguine Bond, like so. Yeah, I guess a lot of combos involve creatures, but then a lot of them involve like harder to deal with permanent types as well, that not every deck is going to necessarily have access to instant speed answers to those things.
But like if you Exquisite Blood and Sanguine Bond, how much mana is that? That's like a lot. And then you still have to like activate, you have to still drain somebody to get the thing going. I don't know. If you like just tap down, float 11 mana, Exquisite Blood, Sanguine Bond, and then manage to ding somebody on the same turn, I mean, like, you earned it. I think you deserve to win at that point.
That's the logical way, but you know, we always see the moto rooms, no combos, right? Like,
yeah.
Okay.
Shorthands.
Last question: is value out of control? Do we have too many triggers?
Yes.
Too many dice, too many die roll, too many upkeep thingies. How too many do you pay the ones? Like stuff where we get interrupted. I know I want to take Champion of the Parish out of my deck because I'm tired of counting die. I know a lot of people don't play Cathar's Crusade because no one wants to put a million dice on the battlefield and start incrementing them. I even kind of want to get Smothering Tiles on my deck because I'm tired of asking people if they want to pay the 2 on every single card draw. Like, is it we have too many triggers going on and just too much stuff happening to resolve all the time?
It makes me sad to say, but I think card draw is too good now.
I
think like when there's like too much. Well, yeah, we talked about this when we were at Vegas on the previous podcast, but I think like there's too many card draw, too many things that you can do every single turn. Like the mana advantage and card advantage of 2023 means that instead of casting one spell and passing, oftentimes in the mid game and especially in the late game, you're casting like so many things per turn. Just every deck. You don't have to be like a storm deck or anything. It's just so easy to do so. And yeah, there's so many triggers and everything to follow up with that it just becomes like, I don't know. It stops getting fun. And like I definitely see this with like, let's say Phil. Sorry, Phil. He's not here to defend himself. But like a Phil deck is literally just that. And I totally get that. That's how when I started playing Commander, that's how I wanted to play too. I wanted to be the Simic value person. Like that was my path in life too. But now it's so easy to do the Simic value-y things or whatever value-y things where you're just like drawing cards, not attacking, blah, 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 blah. It just starts like as soon as that starts happening, I just stop having fun, you know, like it's just too much. It's too easy to pull it, to do all these things. And I'm just like, oh man, I'm just going to play aggro.
For me,
attack things.
For me, it's a little bit like wrapping back around to the start of the cast where I changed a lot of the decks that I played to get game length down. I have also crossed a lot of decks off my list of my rotation because I didn't want to deal with all the triggers of them. So I have felt that myself. Like I was really excited to build the Yarok attractions, and then I found that just like managing all the attractions every turn, I was taking 5 or 10 minutes each turn cycle, and I was feeling bad that I was wasting so much of the time. So I just like stopped playing the deck because there were so many triggers to resolve. Or the same is true of like the Preston deck. I guess the same decks that I took out of rotation for time reasons are also decks that are very like trigger heavy, that are just like doing so much stuff. So yeah, and it's very easy to build those decks, and they're fun. Like it's fun to draw all the cards and do all the things. So I can certainly see why someone just joining the format would head in that direction. There's a reason that like Teova or Asai or like some of those commanders are like the most popular ones, are super easy and fun, and you always got cards and you always got mana. So yeah, I think that does play into it. I don't know if there's any solution to that from a meta perspective. I think you can like have some self-control in your own deck selection and like kind of rule zero yourself if it becomes too much. But yeah, I think that modern card design does play into it.
I think the option will always be there.
You've been an advocate of Hull Breacher. Do we need
Krim never
Hull
takes
Breachers?
long turns too. Like he's very much draw go and everything. So I've never seen Krim actually have like a deck that does this sort of style.
I don't take long turns also because I usually speed through my turns.
Yeah, even your Super Friends deck, like you kind of go pretty quick. I would never say that you're ever slow playing. You play control decks, but you're never
This
slow
is
on your
what
turn.
years of playing control has taught you. You don't want to go to time.
Yeah.
Crim plays super fast.
And that is exactly it. Like I used to never get to have lunch in between rounds at tournaments. It's because I was always playing the slowest deck. So I learned real quick to just, hey, I got to be efficient with my turns, plan during your turns. So that's the other thing. So I don't know. I personally don't. I don't know. You like I don't even know. I'm trying to figure out how to put this into words. Richard, you take over.
So while you pause, I was gonna say it's not only the card draw; it's the style of card draw. So like red players are the worst. Sorry, red players, because what they do is they all Itali you, which takes like much longer to resolve than to just draw a card, right? They're like, everybody exile the top card of your libraries, right? Choose one amongst them that can't be cast or something, and then I get a choice to cast another one for free. And then, so it's like not just draw a card, right? But it requires actions from everyone, and it requires like messing with their deck. So I would say it's not only just the raw card draw, but it's the way we're drawing cards too, right? Esper Sentinel, I think, is a mistake, right? We all acknowledge this, something where you have to ask someone like every single literal game action that's happening. Hey, do you pay you pay that? Like, hey, do you do that? Stuff that triggers on every upkeep, every end step. Like, it's these kind of things that kind of drag out the game. And I'm surprised Wizards doesn't fix it. Like, we still have some of these effects going on new cards. But I think that's a game design thing, right? Like, people, like almost everyone I talk to at MagicCon, like, will not play Cathar's Crusade. No one wants to deal with those dice.
My boyfriend loves it. He brings like a giant box of it. That's his like favorite thing. No, but he's actually really fast on it. So like
I was like suffering just using Baragon. I'm like incrementing the die of Baragon. I can't imagine like individual creatures at different pump levels and you enter. Oh, these enter simultaneously. So this, but then after that resolves, this triggers. So that happens. These are summoning sick, by the way. These are tapped. It's like, oh my goodness.
Because like his favorite things, like he plays like Subway Simulator where he builds like subways, and he loves sheets and Excel sheets and stuff like that. So like, oh yeah, managing tracking counters on 50 different unique game pieces. Oh baby, that's like his favorite thing. Not for me though. Like I definitely will never play a Cathar's Crusade deck. But I think like this kind of thing is kind of hard for Wizards of the Coast to fix. I think, well, like, no more Esper Sentinels, please. I hope so. No more pay the X ever printed again. I just don't want to see any more of them. Like, do you pay the X is like just a banned terminology, I would say, going forward. But I think the nice thing, though, is also Wizards of the Coast has printed a lot more good aggro commanders. Anything that has, like, a powerful attack trigger. Obviously, like, Winota's too far on one extreme. We don't really need more Winotas, obviously. But, like, a lot of my decks have, like, when you attack, you draw cards. When you attack, you generate mana when you attack. And it's like, yeah, attack. And, like, okay, what? I'm going for the value, obviously, but I'm also lowering everybody's life totals. I can't go for the value too many times because you're all going to die. And I think that's beautiful of, like, modern commander design. There's a lot of just good commanders that have powerful attack triggers that are very varied. Like, whenever you attack, you get to reanimate an enchantment. You know, whenever you attack, you get to make a token of something. You know, those are wonderful. I love those.
Okay, so to close things out, give me two things. Give me one. Do you think the format should go faster or slower? And one thing you would like to see Wizards of the Coast do.
Okay, well, I mean, you know what? Since that's what I was going to say in response to everything from the last round of topic is going to kind of segue into this, and I think that we should see more Orcish Bowmasters. Not even kidding.
Card punish, that is also a win con.
Yeah,
on its own,
I think we should be punishing the greed, right?
We should run Children in every deck.
Yeah, I'm not joking. Punish greed. Punish greed. You drew a lot of cards. Hope you have an answer. Right? Like, right?
Can they just not be good with wheels as well?
Yeah,
Independent of wheels.
It's just
Well,
the first card you draw each turn or something takes damage, but you don't
or
take
like
for
if
every
you
card.
like
No,
what's like
every
if a
card
spell or
after the
ability you
first.
control, if a spell or ability you control would cause if a spell or ability an opponent control will cause them to draw more than one card, they do something bad. You know, like there was a card that did that, right? That was like
Alms
anti.
Collector.
It didn't work with wheels. It's like, wow. I totally agree with that, though. Actually,
Tomer, what is your assessment on game length and your recommendation?
I think game length is a perfect length right now. Well, I think it's faster than it used to be. And I think that's a good thing. And my recommendation would be if there's ever a card that says, do you pay the X? And it happens every single turn, you just delete that card. You just throw it in the bin and you don't print it. And that's how I would solve it. No more Smothering Tide, no more Rhystic Study, no more Mystic Remora, no more Esper Sentinel. Just do you pay that? That's banned. That's the banned phrase that you just delete.
All right. I think the game length, most game lengths are fine, but there are certain decks that just get super, super lengthy. And I think in Commander Clash, we didn't really talk about that much, but our meta is incredibly long games for whatever reason. So I don't know if our meta is the average meta. As far as what Wizards can do, for me, I think the big one is just like chill out with the Catch-All Exile Wrath. Like Magic's more fun when you can play around things, when you can recur things, when there's some variance in the cards that people are playing. So less like just catch-all undo inversion style cards that are just like blow up everything, and more narrow specific Wrath for specific decks.
Onto inversion, menace of the format.
I mean, it is because it's a free include in every
It's
deck,
a land.
right?
I was going to say this earlier, but like maybe I don't play that many farewells, but I do play Undo Inversion in every deck that's white because it's free. It's a land.
So I would say the game length is just about perfect, but we're starting to teeter towards too long. So if Wizards keeps pushing in this direction, we're going to get too long. So I like to keep them there. And I would say no more Teferi's Pro type cards. No more like one card, catch all, answer your entire game plan and keep me alive cards. So none of that, because I think we have a lot of them. Like Seth said, why don't we just they make worse ones? They do. It's called Fog and Angel's Grace, and people haven't caught on to these cards. And once they catch on, like we're gonna have an overwhelming number of these cards, right? Like the Wraths, people are like, oh, Farewell is so good. Let me play Devastating Mastery. Let me play Ondu Inversion. Now that I realize how strong this is, there's all these like cards that are just slightly worse that have existed in Magic's history. I'll pull them out, right? So no more one card, answer whatever you've been doing the whole game and get out of jail free. Like just, I don't know what that would be. Just play it out normally, but no more Teferi's Pro. So that wraps up the podcast. Let us know in the comments what you think about game length. What do you think about farewells? What do you think about card draw? What do you think about triggers? What would you want to see Wizards doing? And I guess combos. Combos is always the interesting one because we always see very vocal people about for or against combos. Like what is your nuanced take on combo? You have a comment section. You can actually type out what you think rather than just vote yes or no combo. Like what do we think about the intermediate combo of, I don't know, 2-3 cards, 10 mana, 12 mana? Are those cool or not in a casual setting? Let us know in the comments, and we'll see you all back here next week.